Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and we've got a major, incredible player on the show with us today, and a really cool guy. We have Andy Wood with us today. Andy's he's just a real badass, so pay close attention. He's toured professionally with a wide range of acts, including most recently Gary Allan, Low Cash, Rascal Flatts, Scott Stapp, and Sebastian Bach. Sebastian Bach from
Skid Row.
Yeah. I could think. You know what, man? I was listening to him like when you were probably 10.
Man, that was actually it was a fun tour. It was very short. This was probably 3-4 years ago now that I did the Bach thing. Pete Thorne referred me for that gig. It was it was just a real quick turnaround. I don't know what happened with his guitar player for whatever reason. He couldn't do a few weeks, and flew out there and just kind of winged it, So
is it like a very 80s metal atmosphere with that with those guys, or are they just kind of older and a little more mellowed, or?
It wasn't like the chaos kind of thing. The fan base still was living in 1987. They were all going crazy, but it was a lot of fun, man. Got to play some cool towns, like doing Chicago and towns like that. Good cool theaters and venues and stuff. That was fun.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was a fun run. So,
and he's actually a talented guy. He wrote some great songs back in the day, man. I really enjoyed a lot of his music.
Yeah, his solo stuff was fun to play. Obviously, we played a lot of the Skid Row stuff too. Tunes like Monkey Business or whatever, but 18 in Life and all the obvious tunes. But some of his solo stuff was really, really fun to play.
That's good that you got to do that, man. Looking for an outlet for styles other than hard rock, Andy also released his debut solo album, A Disconcerting Amalgam. He's studying for the SAT exam at the same time he's coming up for the titles.
That's funny. The title of the title of that was a kind of an inside joke. It's not very inside now. There was a news. It's like not a newspaper, but you know how towns will have, like cities will have the little city guide or whatever for a local.
Sure.
So one of those reviewed me some point, the band I was in. They said, it was a disconcerting amalgam of genres.
That's
and I looked
awesome.
it up and I was like, oh, these are a bunch of things that go together and make you uncomfortable. And I was like, well, if you think that's something, check out this solo record. And I used that as a title of the solo record to kind of just be a little.
Man. Yeah,
little return jab, if you will.
That's
and
great.
Being
man.
a guy that plays like some more shreddy stuff, but then a lot of bluegrass and Americana stuff, and blues and some jazz and stuff like that. It's like I do play a lot of different genres, and I look at it as just a matter of being a guy who likes a lot of different music. I'm not really going at it from the aspect of trying to do all these things to prove that I can. It's just that in general, that's what's on my playlist is a bunch of different styles of music. Kill Switch Engage is right next to Chick Corea. It's like I like all of that kind of stuff. So for me, when I first started getting on the scene, I think it was hard for people to figure out where to put me. We all like to put things in little categories and stuff. And even now, I'm years into my career. When people ask me what it sounds like, I'm just like, it's just me playing guitar and mandolin. You can figure it out for yourself, what you think it is. But that's where the title came from. And it is a mouthful to say.
No, but that's good. That's a perfect jab. I would have done something like that. That was really good. But I think also, I could think of 5 solo guitarists on their first albums are generally, like, look at Eric Johnson. You can look at that guy's first album. I mean, I know guys.
A lot of his albums, man.
Yeah.
Tones and Avia Musicom, both those records, they went through a lot of different things. The first Vi record, the Flexible record, had a lot of different stuff on it. And it was a little closer to the Zappa sound, And then he got more dialed into things and did it. It's almost like you can see it with a musician's career. They make their first couple of records, and then where they were using the songs to be different little statements of different things that they like. As you get older, you can use a whole album to be a different statement, you know. And I see that with myself. It's like I'm in the process of writing my next record, and it's way more down this dialed in kind of thing. But I feel like I've got a lot of content now that explores all of the things that I like. And if I do a record that's dialed into a certain genre, a certain thing, now at this point, I'm personally okay with it. It's not a matter of me trying to prove anything. Like I said, it's just okay, now I've got this body of work, and I know that I've released all of this original music that covers all these different places. Now, if I make a whole album of 10 songs that's very dialed in, just instrumental guitar, that is, you know, this thing that I do, I'm comfortable with it. And if I do another record, I can do a whole bluegrass record or a whole whatever record, and it's not so I don't feel so trapped. And I think you see that across a lot of different players because, you know, musicians are dorks and we're artists and we want growth and we want to not be regurgitating the same material, you know.
And I think that's like that in any career because you're sort of in any business. If you own a business, you're grabbing money everywhere. And then you sort of, as you get your maturity, you say, okay, we could focus and specialize in this one area. And then you look at guys like David Bowie and Neil Young. Come on, man. Those guys were putting out, you know, weird different stuff for whole albums too. So, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the music in general, the music these days with festivals and stuff, festivals are pulling together a lot of artists that don't necessarily share a bill, that don't necessarily go together. But I like that because it makes it an inviting place for, you know, a guy like myself who plays a lot of different genres. It's like I would like to be able to share a bill with I don't know, like a Fish or a Widespread Panic or a jam band artist. But I'd also like to think that I could share a bill with a Brad Paisley or a pop country artist, you know, or a Ronnie McCurry, Del McCurry with bluegrass or whatever. I like to think that, you know, I could put on the hat that's needed to entertain the audience that's there, you know. And I guess that's just, you know, come from a lot of time playing the guitar and touring music and being a sideman too, you know.
Yeah, well, you definitely can because you're proficient in loads of styles. Let me just finish this up. I want to get our thing. And A Disconcerting Amalgam, that was Andy's first record, and that covers a broad range of genres, as we just talked about, including fusion, rock, metal, and acoustic bluegrass. And if you're into, like, mandolin and stuff like that and non-guitar string instruments, you should check it out. He's really extremely proficient, and you'll find out why in a second. He spent most of his childhood playing and competing in bluegrass festivals. Touring the bluegrass circuit with his cousin and grandfather provided him with the necessary exposure that helped refine and sharpen his skills, and Andy and his cousin held various state championship titles. Then when he was 16, Andy finished second in the World Championship Mandolin Contest in Winfield, Kansas, and all of this was accomplished before he even picked up an electric guitar at the age of 18. So let me pause for a minute. You probably were it was probably easy to pick up the electric guitar after playing a mandolin at a world championship level.
Yes and no. So like on the yes side, when I went to electric guitar to really dig into it, obviously I can play some acoustic guitar and some bluegrass and stuff, but guys that were really natural to learn from were guys like Steve Morse, Paul Gilbert, Eric Johnson, chicken picking guys, like guys that picked every note. Basically anybody that picked a note became a little more natural to me. Where the no part of that answer comes from, where things were extremely difficult, is guys that had a lot of legato, left-hand technique, tapping, like all of that stuff was just like, it hit me like a UFO landed, because on mandolin, you can the nature of the instrument. If you have a pull off, you only get one pull off in your left hand, and the next note will die. You can't do multiple pull offs, right? Mm-hmm. There's no sustain to the instrument. So the first time I watched a Joe Satriani DVD or Steve I DVD, and they just like throw the right hand up in the air and they play all this whole line with their left hand, I was like, well, that's impossible. That's just ridiculous, you know. And then I discovered what happens when you have an electric guitar plugged into an amplifier that's loud with some gain and compression and those things. I started obviously learning how to do that. But man, the first time I saw that, it leveled me. I didn't even know how it worked. I was used to banjos and fiddles and mandolins and stuff that you had to, attack every single note that you wanted to play. So that was much more difficult for me than I think I had anticipated.
Yeah, that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense when you explain it. Fast forward a few years, Andy's curiosity and appreciation for music drew him into the world of electric guitars, and this is at 18. This new instrument was familiar due to his experience with acoustic instruments, but at the same time, as he just said, it allowed him to manipulate his sound in ways never before possible. He began studying the styles of Nashville session players such as Brent Mason and Albert Lee. Yeah, quick story about that. I cannot tell you how many guys I've interviewed that said, I came to Nashville and I went down to watch Brent Mason, and I said to myself, man, I really probably should not be here just from watching.
Brent's the king. He's my all-time favorite guitar player. He's the king.
Just from watching Brent Mason. It wasn't long after that, Andy immersed himself in new styles such as jazz, swing fusion, and rock, and he began to study other guitar greats such as Dixie Dregs, Eric Johnson, Eddie Van Halen, Joe Satriani, and Steve Vai, and he began incorporating their influences into his own style. At 22, he was drawn back to competition at Guitarmageddon, which is a guitar contest sponsored by Guitar Center. Andy was a face in the crowd of 3,400 other contestants, but he made his presence known by being crowned champion of this prestigious tournament. Where was that? In California?
That was actually a 3-month tournament or contest or whatever you want to call it. You win at your store, and you have to win like 2 or 3 times at your store level. And then they take you to your district. My district was Orlando, Florida. And then you have to win at your district. And then there's 7 districts across the country. And the final was in Las Vegas. All 7 winners from the districts met in Vegas and did it that way. So it was kind of mind-numbing, of an event. I didn't think I had a chance. My buddies kind of entered me as a joke. We were just hanging out, and they signed me up, and I was like, whatever, I'm not gonna win. I'll do it, And so ended up winning the first one and the second one, and then when I got to the regionals, I was like, man, maybe I should put some thought into this.
What were you playing?
So
what kind of music were you playing?
So the contest, they gave you a CD that you had to choose one of 25 or 30 backing tracks. They were all harmonically a blues progression of some sort. Now, rhythmically, you had like a metal version of it, a rock version, a jazz version, a salsa, all these different ways of like approaching a blues. So if you wanted a more harmonically dense one, you could choose the blues that had the like the jazz turnarounds in it, and it felt like playing what's Charlie Parker's tune? Billy's Bounce. Okay. It felt like playing to Billy's Bounce. The one that I chose was a straight 8 kind of groove, and every time it came around, I changed the style. So I played a black creative Telecaster. I played this old beat up Fender Tele that I had, and just used a chord. I didn't use any pedals or anything. The amplifiers that they provided had a clean and a dirty and a foot switch. That's all I used, and that reverb on the amp. And every time it came around, so I wrote a melody, and then I played it like a jazz player would play it, then I played it like a rock player would play it, then I played it like a country player. So went through the progress like that. And then after you do your performance to the CD, which is 2 or 3 minutes, you have 2 minutes to do whatever you want. So a lot of guys had like loop pedals or harmonizers or all this stuff, and I just played an acoustic for I just went the opposite direction and didn't use any effects. I think having spent my whole life playing acoustic, it was an advantage for me, and obviously it kind of set me apart. So I will say that all other players at that contest at the final level, all 7 of us, it could have went any other way. Like all those guys were fantastic players. There's a guy from Chicago that did the George Benson thing that kind of sang along with what he played. It was mind-numbing. There was another guy that did kind of the Tommy Emmanuel thing, the finger-picking thing. It was really great. And I think once we were all at that level, you win so much stuff and gear and prizes. By the time you even get to the finales, you've got guitars and amps and stuff. Nobody really even had
so
a
there
chip
was
on their shoulder.
There was serious prizes in there.
There was like 20. There was like, yeah, if you won the regional, you got to design a Music Man, choose anything from the catalog. You got every product that Line 6 made. So I got like the Veda full stack and, the effects units and all the different Line 6 stuff. And then at the finals, they gave away a $10,000 award or whatever. And I used that to buy my grandfather, who got me started playing a D45.
Oh, man, that's so nice of you.
It was like it's actually the year that I won, the 2003 or 4 or whatever it was. That catalog for Martin, the picture of the D45 is the exact D45 that I got.
Wow,
so Guitar Center reached out to Martin to tell them what I was doing, and Martin gave me that. It was really awesome.
That's really cool, man. Your grandfather must have been so proud of you.
He was pretty floored.
Yeah. Well, this is a pretty big accomplishment considering you started playing guitar 4 years earlier.
Yeah. Well, electric guitar.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So after that, you started a band called Down From Up.
Yeah.
Where was
that? And that was in Knoxville. We toured. We were like a modern rock kind of band, radio rock at this time in the early mid 2000s. Bands like Drowning Pool and Seven Dust and all that stuff were really big, and we toured with some of those guys. We toured with both those bands. We did a lot of the like various festivals and things like that. That kind of music. Problem with that kind of music was all of us wanted to do more things, like more different styles, and that music is very one-dimensional, not in a bad way. It's just it's heavy and it's big. It's heavy and it's big, and we wanted to do other things, and so we all disbanded. And the singer Eric Baker, he does like Americana singer-songwriter stuff now, and Matt Brewster does a lot of film production for TV and film editing and stuff like that. And then myself, I went and did the sideman thing and solo career. And the drummer Andy Campbell, I still use. He plays with me a lot, so he's performing with me on the Live at the Bijou thing. So
very cool.
It was cool. It was a cool moment in time to tour and be in a rock band in your early 20s, and
And you were still
there's
new.
any time in your life to be in a rock band. That's when you do it.
Yeah, but still, you were coming off this whole this is still brand new for you in a sense.
Yeah, for sure. I was learning about specifically heavy music that I'd never been exposed to. Things like Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power, stuff like that, like Alice in Chains. I never really listened to a lot of that stuff when I was a teenager. So, when I was like 22, 23, 24, 25, it was like I was really into it because it was, it was fresh to me. And things like, Kill Switch or whatever, like that was all, very, very like nothing else I'd ever heard. I'd never thought about tuning my guitar to drop C and bashing out riffs, So it was fun.
Cool, man. And you toured with Seven Dust, Drowning Pool, and 10 Years. And Andy's also got a signature line of guitars with John Suhr, a new live double album out called Live at the Bijou, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And he's also got another record. His second record was called Caught Between the Truth and the Lie. I like that title. That's a clever title, man. How did that one come
Thanks. The title of the record. So the record is 24 songs, with one disc being all acoustic music and one disc being all electric. And the record title came about because it's just kind of like, an artsy fartsy way of saying how I felt about having one foot in the mandolin acoustic world, enjoying that side of music, and the other foot being in the, the shreddier side of things, the notier side of life, if you will, and playing electric music and stuff like that. And with the acoustic side of the record, we didn't use any overdubs or punched solos or anything. Like if I played a solo, it was the solo like that. Like now I may have taken 2 or 3 takes at doing the solo or whatever, but like it was all done quote unquote honestly. Anything that you hear on the acoustic side of the record, there's no plugins that are doing anything. We actually were using there's like an old Delta bluesy kind of song that I wrote called Dust and Ashes, and we brought in like 15 of my friends to do the like chain gang vocals, and then we actually hit a trash can lid for the for the percussion. We were doing things organically for that side of the record. And that's the whole truth side. And the electric side was, we went crazy with all the, the cool reverbs and delays and, fusion and some odd time signatures, and just had a bunch of fun with the other side of music. And what ties the two sides of the record together is the title track, The Truth and the Lie. On the acoustic side, it's written as a mandolin tune that's like kind of bluegrassy, and on the electric side, it's played more like a fusion shred kind of thing.
Same song.
That's same song. That's the glue for both sides of the record to fit together. So it was just kind of like, oh, how do I put a finer point on this body of work other than just saying, hey, I'm this guy that does these two different things. Here's the same song presented to you two different ways, and I live somewhere in the middle of all this. So that's
really clever and extremely consistent with how you won the freaking Guitarmageddon. It's right. I mean, seriously, it's like the same thing. I was like,
about it that way,
that's pretty clever because, man, it's a winning formula.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where, and actually, to do that record, it was my second record, and people get artists get nervous about, and I was too. You get nervous about your sophomore release. Yeah. You don't want you're always like, oh, this is my second record. How do I follow it up? And there was so much acoustic music that I wanted to make. There was I had guest vocalists singing songs that I'd written that were more singer-songwriter type things, and then. But also I wanted to play a lot of the notier stuff. I had tunes like Elfin Man that were written as tributes to Danny Elfman, and they have that weird carnival, spooky horror movie thing going on with a lot of distortion and double kick and all that stuff. So, it was like, it was just one of those things. It was like, oh, if I were to die in a car wreck, what album would I leave behind to say, well, this is what I do? That's where Caught came from. Was like, this is my statement. If you love it, great. If you hate it, great. But this is who I am. And I think, like we were talking earlier, now I can move forward in my career and make a whole record of something. And, it's like, but I just needed to make that statement before I could move forward in any other way,
I give you credit for that because I think to have the courage to do that on a second album isn't easy or wasn't easy. Or, how did you feel at the time? Because it seems like, you wanted to get it out of your system and sort of kind of help you make peace with yourself with whatever you do.
That's exactly what it was. It felt almost therapeutic. It's like, I don't know what I want to do because truth be told, I feel like a lot of the guys that are really into what I do, they like the pyrotechnic stuff. They like the circus trick type of playing. And, they like to see this weird chicken picking shred thing that I do. They like that, and they like to see the this crazy hybrid tapping, all the circus tricks, all the technique. A lot of guys that follow me love to see technique, and for me, I needed to make that record because I needed to make the music that addressed all of the music that I love. That's not technique based. That's not just based on some kind of flash or whatever you want to call it. And so for me, it was when you said it must have been courageous. It was like, for me, it was just like, well, I hope people dig it because there's, 10 songs that are not that. There's a whole side of an album that's not what people like to see me do. And I hope that they're okay with that. So, it was it was that therapeutic thing. It was like, I'm going to do this for me, and then I can make any other music and videos or whatever content that I want to create that can be any more specialized, so to speak. Yeah, well, I think that takes a lot of courage early on in your career like that. Not early on in your career, but your second record is early. Yeah, it's for sure early. Yeah, and I think that's why so many people are nervous about making their second record. We got out of your system, man. So. Yeah, for sure. So it makes it a lot easier to write this record. I've been writing like crazy for the past month or so, and I'm going to have more than enough content for another 2 records probably. But it's funny how that works. Once you get that out, it allows you to be creative and just not put this pressure on yourself to write a certain thing, So you seem pretty prolific. How do you is writing in general therapeutic for you, creating music? Yeah, it is. And I don't know what I'd do without it, but it's also fun and silly at times. And it's also very cheeky. I feel like at times I write from a same sort of place creatively that maybe some of the Frank Zappa stuff came from, where it was like, there's a tune on called Tokyo, and it was written as a ode to 70s and 80s action flicks and kung fu movies.
Right.
So I don't always think that I need to be quote unquote serious to write a song. I feel like it's a sense of humor for me too, and I feel like it comes from that. And I also do treat writing like like someone would treat a job, in that I go downstairs to my studio and this is brand new to me. Like, this isn't something that's years old. This is something I've just come about in the past probably 30 days or month and a half. I've been treating it like a job. I go downstairs and I record something, whether it be an idea, it could be 8 measures long, it could be 8 minutes long. And I don't worry about finishing it. I just try to write something and create something new every day. And that has really been beneficial to me, because it takes this like weight off of my shoulders when it's time to write. It's like, okay, maybe this idea sucks, but I'm going to record it anyway. Okay, maybe this, and then I'll go back and listen, 10 days after the fact. I'm like, wow, there's something in this. It's not presented the way it should be. It's like, I'm trying to do it with this flood of work and just let it happen, and not try to, previously in my life, I always tried to schedule writing sessions and block time, and it doesn't seem to be as beneficial as what I'm doing now. So
it's also not necessary. It's also not necessary, because it's not like you're in the Brill building or one of these places where you're required to crank out X number of songs a day. And I could see it creatively taking a lot of pressure off you, because your expectations of yourself are not to have a finished song. It's to have an idea that might, with fresh eyes, then lead to a finished song. That's
exactly it.
Yeah, that's a much more creative, fun process than, fuck me, man, I didn't do, and then you start making shit up just to finish it. And then ultimately the next day when you look at it, it's not going to be right anyway.
Exactly. You end up just, I'll end up, really stressing about how a drum part or a bass part or some rhythm section thing might go with a melody, or, with this new record, I've just taken all those restraints off in how I'm writing it. And it's going to be exciting, because this new record is going to be diving in even more to a point on that blend of what I do, where I'm taking my electric guitar melodies and I'm working in how banjo and fiddle and mandolin instruments can incorporate in with the electric stuff. And it has this really cool Dixie Dregs thing. Like, I feel like this record that I'm writing now is very Newgrass Revival with an electric guitar player, or Dixie Dregs or whatever. So it is fun for me, because now I feel like I've made all this content. Now I can just make this record and it can be what it is, live on its own merits, and it doesn't have that pressure. So it is nice. And if anybody out there listening to the podcast is, I'm sure you have, guys that play guitar and write and create, the sooner you can get free of that pressure to make your statement and just go ahead and make it, the sooner you'll get to where you're enjoying the small aspects of writing. Those we put so much pressure on ourselves with a riff that may last 8 measures. They were like, oh, it's not right, it's not perfect. It's like, that's 8 measures out of 109 minutes of music. It's like, you kind of have to just let the music happen, at some point. And it's taken me a long time to learn how to, do what I'm doing now. And it's taken me, like Truth and Lie, that record, man, it took me a year to write that. There was 50 something demos for that record.
Wow.
And it took a year of my life, maybe a little more, to start to finish that thing. And in a sense, in all fairness, it is 2 records. It's 24 songs. So, I whittled down half, and then I wrote a couple in the studio. So, but it was just a major undertaking. I felt like it was just swallowing me whole almost, just with the size of it.
Yeah, that's big. And again, it's your second outing to do. That's why I say overall, you gotta, and I'm not kissing your ass by any means. I'm just being honest. I think you owe yourself a pat on the back for what you did, because that's a pretty big undertaking for your second outing in many ways. And then to come up with a double, yeah, that's pretty badass, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do. And I think this live at the Bijou thing I've got coming out it's going to be really cool because it pulls 5 instrumentals from that record, and it was nice to have such a huge body of work to choose from when you go to make a live concert.
Well, let's talk about that then. So how did this? What was the genesis? So let me just tell everybody what Andy's talking about is he's got an album coming out any day now. Now this is November, so by the time this gets released, it'll be out. But it's called Andy. Where is it here? Okay, Andy Wood live at the Bijou, and it's a live record. I shouldn't say record. It's a live recording, and it's got video as well to go with it, and it's got a 45-minute interview, which is really cool. So how did this come about, and what prompted you to do this? Again, not your typical third album is live. That's
I think that the fact that it ended up being the third album is coincidental. I never thought about that until you just said it. So this came from an aspect. I'd been playing a lot of shows, a lot of solo shows, clinics, things like that, instrumental stuff, and there's a company in Knoxville that I work with. It's a promotions company. They're like, hey, we're doing this event or whatever. They wanted me to do a show 2 years ago at the Bijou, and it went really, really, really well. Sold it out. It was killer. Huge crowd. It was really great.
Is that it? That's in Knoxville?
That's in Knoxville, yeah. So the venue is 108 years old, and it's got this really cool historic vibe. I mean, it looks like I don't know what to describe it as. It just looks like just that really old turn of the century kind of thing, and it's huge ceilings. I mean, it's like basically if you shrunk the Royal Albert Hall to a much smaller version of itself. It's kind of got that kind of vibe going on. It's really cool. And when they asked me to do the same show this year, so this show was recorded in May of this year, 2017, and I talked to my business partner, a couple friends of mine in the industry that wanted to film it. Like I said, Andy Jeffers from Sports Media Entertainment proposed that we blow it out and do it really big. So I said, well, if we do it that way, let's go ahead and multi-track the show. So we set up as many safety nets as possible, and by that I mean, you never know when you're gonna have a pop in a line or something like that you got to go back and fix with post-production. So we did 6 cameras or 7 cameras, all HD. So for people that have the 4K OLED TVs, it looks killer. And the video is the full concert. I think the time code is at 114 minutes or something like that. And you'll be able to get the video on iTunes, Amazon, all of the standard places you buy your video these days digitally. Of course, you can get it on my website. My website will have links to it. And then, of course, the album itself, I said when we were doing the video, I was so blindsided. I said, well, why don't we just release an album too? You can have the audio too. So that the album kind of happened accidentally, probably not even 2 months ago. Once we finished editing down the audio and making sure everything sounded great, mixing it and stuff, I said, well, let's just upload this to iTunes so people can have that too. So if you want to have just the audio, you can get that on all of Spotify's, Pandora's, everywhere you get your music, you can have just the music. And then, of course, I encourage the video just because it looks so good. And the players involved, I have to take a second to give big props to the band and guests. On steel guitar was Travis Toy, who's just a devastatingly great musician across all different kind of instruments. He and I worked together when I played with Rascal Flatts. We worked together for about 1.5 years. On rhythm guitar is Ben Eller, who you can find on Weekend Wank Shop, and This Is Why You Suck at Guitar. If you're familiar with that on YouTube, he's got, I think, 100, 200,000 subscribers. So he's got a cool fan base. And on drums was Andy Campbell, who I worked with in Down From Up. On bass is Todd Parks, one of my favorite bass players. He's also a Knoxville guy. He plays with Sam Bush, who was my childhood hero. So the world had gotten really small really quick when one of my buddies started playing bass for the guy that made me want to play music in the first place. And then on fiddle is my cousin, who I've played with since I was 5 years old. And my 89-year-old granddad got to come to the show. It was amazing. I had a male guest singer named Jordan Burris. He sang on Caught Between the Truth and the Lie. He sang a couple of bluegrass songs on the acoustic side. And then it was really cool to have him come out. Everybody on stage put down their electric instruments and grabbed acoustic instruments, and we all gathered around Jordan and did it like kind of a Del McCurry kind of thing in the middle of the show. So that was really neat. And then we had a singer, Kendra Chantel. She sings with Tom Kiefer, and she sings with everybody. It's unbelievable. She's very in-demand vocalist in Nashville. And she came in and she did 3 R&B tunes. We did Palace of the King. We did an old B.B. King tune called Never Make Your Move Too Soon. And we did Gladys Knight's Midnight Train to Georgia.
Great
and
songs.
we came up with like our own arrangements, to kind of, I didn't want to try to just be another white boy trying to pretend to play the blues or whatever you want to call that,
Sure.
So we came up with a cool way to deliver those tunes where Kendra was singing them, gave them a cool rhythmic spin that was a little more my flavor. And then I asked Travis, the steel player, there's no keyboards on stage, I asked him to use a Leslie effect on his steel to emulate a B3 chord. So there's some
so how did he do that? Pedal?
Yeah, there was a pedal that he went through like 3 pedals, and I can't remember which one at rehearsals we thought sounded the most accurate. But at the end of the deciding factors, it was really cool. Like when he would hit a chord. Sorry, my phone just keeps falling. When he would hit a chord and slide the bar, it just sounded like the left hand of a B3 Hammond player sliding across the keys. It was really, really neat.
That's very cool.
And so it kind of allowed me to play the music for Kendra because I wanted to have a couple of R&B moments because I love that music, but I also wanted to deliver it like myself and put a spin on it that made it mine. Same way with the bluegrass. We did the bluegrass set with Jordan, but we put a spin on it by doing a couple of standard bluegrass tunes, and then I arranged a bluegrass version of Fleetwood Mac's "The Chain."
Great song, man.
And so I arranged that for fiddle and dobro and mandolin and upright bass. So there's no drums and stuff. So we had to get really creative with the rhythmic aspect of it, and did all the finger picking parts that Lindsay does live. I did that on mandolin with like cross picking and stuff. And then of course, instead of a girl singing, there was a male vocalist instead. So it's got a really fresh spin on that. And I love for my live shows, I love picking a classic rock song and playing it out of its context. It's just something fun for the audience, and it's fun for us on stage too.
Now, if I remember, there was a mandolin in the original version of "The Chain," wasn't there? In the beginning.
God, there's 5,000 tracks on that song.
Oh, is there?
When you dig into that thing and start like turning on and off one side of the speakers and start listening to all the layers, it's pretty devastating how well produced that is. And I think we all take it for granted, songs like that, because we let them wash over us in their greatness. And then when you go to dissect it to try to rebuild it in a different format, you really get bamboozled with how much stuff that you've got to recreate. You've got to recreate these iconic drum parts, and there's no drums on stage. So what do you do? Yeah. So we all got really creative to do that, and it was fun. And then, of course, there was the 5 or 6 of my instrumental songs in the show, and we ended the show with a moment to let everybody feature, doing a kind of a funky reimagined version of Bill Withers' "Use Me." So
that's a good song, yeah.
Really yeah, and and I try to choose songs. It's obviously not it's not a show full of covers. There's only like 3 or 4 covers.
No, but you didn't pick.
I try to choose ones. Yeah, I try to choose ones that a guitar player wouldn't choose.
Right.
That's what I tried to do.
Right. Like you didn't pick, like there's plenty of other Fleetwood Mac songs that are probably at the more top of consciousness, plenty of other Bill Withers songs, but you picked like a real good song, but not the mainstream one.
Yeah, I could never do a B.B. King tune and do, Thrill Is Gone.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that's played that song. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
The world doesn't need another version of Hendrix's Little Wing. I feel like everybody's done it great so far. They don't need to hear me do it. But I feel like maybe the world could, enjoy a bluegrass version of a Fleetwood Mac song. I feel like that's the angle to play. And it was also a cool way for me to feature the vocalist that I wanted to feature and feature the band in the format that I wanted to. And I think my favorite part of the whole entire concert was a medley that my cousin and I did, just mandolin and fiddle. Everybody leaves the stage except us. And I got to point up to the where my granddad was sitting, and he was there. And I said, here's a medley of tunes that, we grew up playing on my granddad's front porch. And Brian and I, we've played together so many years, we never even rehearsed the medley. Yeah. We just said, which tunes do you want to play? It's like, let's play these 4. Okay. So the first time we played those, we're on stage together. That's so it had this really cool, oh my God, energy to it, where it's like, maybe we're recording this and we're filming it and there's a packed house, but we have not played this together. But of course, there's something to be said for playing music for 30 years. We just played it and it went off without a hitch. So
it would be odd that if you couldn't do that, to be honest with you. Yeah. It would probably be weirder to rehearse it. So
yeah, that's why I didn't do it. I didn't want to make it unorganic. That was the exact reason. Yeah.
So I like that you tend to do things like just a little off kilter, like you have your own spin on them, and I like that. Because it takes thought to do that. Stuff like that, you have to put deliberate energy into it. You can't just let's try it. Because if you do things on your own, you'll do the Thrill Is Gone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I feel like the only thing that I've got to offer the world, especially the guitar community or the music community, the only thing I can offer is things done the way Andy Wood does them.
Yeah.
I worship so many other guitar players, and if I could be Eric Johnson or Brent Mason, I would. But it's like at some point, I feel like what I can bring to the table is a sonic representation of how I grew up, which is an acoustic guy that ended up playing electric music, So I try to tie that theme into everything that I do. And this concert, it sounds so good, man. Like it's mixed so well. Props to Evan Owen in Nashville, who mixed it. He's worked on a lot of, we call him Turbo, but he's worked on a lot of Joe Nichols and Jason Aldean records and some very, very big pop country records. He's one of the best in the business, and he's a really young guy, and he just made that thing sound so good. And, props to Andy Jeffers and his video team. They made it look like just unbelievable. I mean, it just looks so, so good. So I hope that everybody really likes it,
Well, let me ask you, you said you're from Knoxville.
Well, I've lived here long enough to claim it. I was born in North Carolina, but Knoxville is home, if that counts.
So where in North Carolina did you grow
over
up?
Over towards Asheville.
Okay. Yeah. Man, that's it's incubator of musicians.
Right. So when Brian and I were coming up, there was a lot of bluegrass players from that area. Brian Sutton was from Western North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously he's a monster. Warren Haynes, not a bluegrass player, but he's from Asheville. Yeah. So it's a hotbed for music. And Brian and I grew up there. And then in our early teens is when I moved to Knoxville. I did high school in Gatlinburg, technically. But it's weird because Asheville and Knoxville are only like 85, 90 miles from each other. So the culture is almost the same. It's like Knoxville is very, very similar. Asheville and Knoxville share a lot of cultural aspects in the arts.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Do you know Audley Freed? He's from around there too, I think.
I don't know him, but obviously I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, good player. So, what was your childhood like growing up? It sounds like you had music like all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was really weird. When I went to like first grade or whatever, I didn't know that everybody didn't play music. Like my cousin and I went to class and we're like, "Oh, what do you play?" And they're like, "What?" It's like, "Well, no, it's just the thing. It was so ingrained in us. I can't when you're an adult, how you really can't remember not being able to read like letters or whatever. Like that's how Brian and I feel about music. Like I can't remember what it's like to pick up a mandolin and not be able to play something, even if it was terrible. I could do a really terrible version of the Tennessee Waltz, when I was a child. It's just or Faded Love or something like that our granddad taught us. So obviously at holidays, Thanksgivings, Christmases, birthdays, everybody just like we get together and play. Like everybody in the family's musical. My mom is a piano player and plays that really cool like old hymn Southern Baptist gospel style of piano. Mm-hmm. So it's got that real bouncy left hand stuff that she does. It's really cool, and she's got great pitch, and so it's always fun to like have her at shows. My family also never really bathed Brian and I in compliments. We weren't coddled. It was none of this, oh, you're so good. It was always, I think it's a little pitchy. Your timing's a little moving. It's like they were very honest, and it was very good for us. Our granddad always would tell us in very old Southern man style, he would say, oh, you ain't got that lope in your right hand. And by that, he meant swung eights. When something had to swing, he would call it a lope. So, growing up in that home, I really learned how to listen to music and hear things and not, I didn't have theory or anything guiding me. It was just, just a granddad and what his words that he chose, the vocabulary that he had. And then, of course, when we got older, Brian and I both went to college and did a couple of years at different music schools just to kind of wrap our heads around basic theory and stuff like that.
But and do you have brothers or sisters? Did they play or
no? I think that's why the relationship with Brian is close.
So you're both only child.
Both only children, first cousins. Yeah, okay. And our mothers are our grandfather's daughters. So that's how the food chain goes. It's all on the maternal side, all of the music stuff.
Gotcha. So. What is your dad?
And of course, on my dad's side, He was very encouraging and supporting of music, but also we had a very common bond with like sports cars. When I turned 16, I got really into trying to make things go fast and be an idiot on a public highway. And, it was fun to do the car shows and stuff like that with my dad. So, great relationship with him. Still have a great relationship with him. But just the music side, the music aspect was on my mother's side. So.
What kind of work did your dad do?
Police officer.
Oh, wow.
So he actually he taught criminal justice, criminology at a community college, but he ended up doing most of his work in insurance fraud. Worked for the state of North Carolina, like that kind of side. So yeah, that's what he did. Yeah. So. Did you move to Nashville to do any of this work? Like when you started hooking up with Rascal Flatts and Low Cash, or how did all this stuff come about? So from Knoxville to Nashville is only a couple of hours, and it's also on the time zone shift. So as you drive, you change time zones. So I never really moved, but my cousin lives down there, and then I've got so many friends down there. I actually did live in Nashville in my early 20s during the Down From Up days. We had an apartment down there that we used as a home base for about 3 or 4 months. But in general, I've always kind of lived out of Knoxville and then just went on tour and met up with whoever. It's actually quite common with a lot of hired gun guys to not technically live in Nashville, because Nashville's cost of living is through the roof right now. Most guys live about 45 minutes out of town or an hour out of town. I spoke to a lot of guys. Yeah, a lot of people live outside of town, and even though I'm on a driving aspect, I'm 2 hours away. From a time aspect, I'm only a 1 hour away because I always gain the hour. So I've always used that as an advantage. Yeah, because I'm driving up there next week, and I was trying to figure out. I said, man, I'll be pushed because I want to get to a concert that night, and then I said, well, I'll get the hour. You get the hour. Yeah, you start using that. when you drive home, you lose it, but that's the drive home, so nobody cares about that.
Right. But then I was thinking, man, but it's still a 10-hour drive.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, how can I gain the hour back? But okay, cool. So how'd you get hooked up with John Suhr? Because you play all Suhr guitars, and they all sound great. How did that relationship develop?
That's a really cool story, too. There was a guy named Ed Yoon who worked for John many, many years ago. And Ed was very active on different forums and things like that. And I was in Down From Up, and MySpace was huge. That was when MySpace was like the king of social media. And I wrote a song for, at the time, one of my favorite guitar players, who still is Guthrie Govan from England, who's just terrifying. And I wrote a song for him called Chelmsford, and it's on my first record. And Ed Yoon had come across that on, I think it was petrucciforum.com or one of those, and it linked up, and it linked him to my MySpace. And I wanted to play a 24 fret guitar. At the time, I was playing Tom Anderson guitars. And I wanted a 24 fretter, and Suhr was getting ready to release the Modern. So Ed got it to where I could have my Modern built and available at January's NAMM. So I bought it, and I bought my first couple of Suhrs. And then the relationship started growing, started doing more and more vids. It was funny, when I went to pick it up at NAMM, I got to sit down and jam a little bit with Scott Henderson.
Oh, that's cool.
I was floored, because this guy's a legend. And it's awesome now to think about how many times I've got to hang out with Scott because of Suhr, and we've got to do the Suhr concerts together and stuff like that. And he's great. Scott's a riot to be in a room with.
And now he's got his own model as well.
Yeah. So Scott, myself, Ian, and Pete all have signature models. And it was kind of like John's way of reimagining what the signature line was, because previously in the past he had done a signature model here or there, but it was just a model. And like last year when he introduced the signature series, it's more of a product line now. Long story short, man, all those guys out there are like good friends now. They're not even like I said, I've been with them for 8 or 9 years. John is an amazing backyard grill master. If you ever have a chance to eat at John's house, I highly recommend it. He's the best. I have a great story about the black guitar that I played. That is
the Telly.
It was the first 24 fret Telly that Suhr ever built. Story goes, it's funny. I'd been playing the Moderns, but I said, I'm not this like gonzo shred guy. Like, that's not the statement. It was during the Truth and Lie era, making that record. I was like, I'm making this album. It's not just shred. It's not just that. I'm not that kind of guy. And I'm a Telecaster player. Like, I know it in my heart. Like, I see pictures of me. These Moderns are cool, but that's not who I am. I want a guitar that feels like a Telly, that sounds like a Telly, that has that thing. But I want the playability and the amenities, the heel joint, everything to feel like the Moderns. So they said, we can't do that. We're not going to do that. So a whole year goes by. No, not going to do it. So I finally got it approved to where they said, all right, we're going to build one. It will only be one. We're not going to sell them. We're not going to offer it to the public. This is it. This is the one. So, okay, cool. So Mike Ponce, the master builder over there, kind of comes up with it, gets it, sends it to me. It blew my mind. It was unbelievable. It was in the first Suhr video concert series. It's got the aluminum pickguard on it and stuff. It plays great. And he had fabricated that heel joint by hand. So, fast forward to the next year at NAMM. I said, well, we're going to do a couple of the exotics in the 24 fret Telly. And I was like, oh, cool, Fast forward to the next year, he's like, all right, too many people want it. We're just going to have to make it. So
great.
Now he's got the Pro Series. Yeah, so now it's like a thing. And
but you've got the first one.
Yeah. I have the prototype that was built by hand.
Very cool, man.
and I still play it. It's the most played guitar that I have. What's cool is the aluminum is starting to wear out and discolor where I plant my. Yeah. So the cool thing is it's a flat black finish, and its sister model is the red and gold. So the red and gold has my signature single coil pickups in it, and it's a hardtail. And the black option is the Pete Thorne pickups with a bar. So it's humbuckers and a bar in the black one, or hardtail with the single coils. So now it's like those are my two most guitars that I play, and they've got flat paint finishes. So if you nickel them or rub them or whatever, like they just get cooler looking as they get played.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling devastated if you get a chip in it. Now it just looks
so
cooler.
shiny. Yeah.
Yeah, these are cool, and the colors from them were inspired by two things. One being 60s muscle cars. I love the two-tone thing that was really popular in that era. And the colors that I chose were, I'm a big Marvel comic fan, and Iron Man is the red and gold. That's where he came from, and the red and gold telly. And then the black one is the armor that Iron Man built for Rhodey, which is the black and silver armor. So, I think the colors are stark red and Rhodey black. I think those are the colors that they are on the website or whatever. But yeah, so that relationship. I'm playing John's amps. He makes these really cool combo amps called Bellas, and they're like really great blackface Fender style amps, and super durable. I've beat them up a lot. They sound great.
Like 50 watts.
Yeah, they can switch it back and forth. You can get it down to 20 watts like an old deluxe, or you can kick it up to like 44, like a Bassman kind of. And outside of that gear that John makes, I play several different heads. I've got a great relationship with the guys at Diesel, so when I need high gain, I usually play one of those. I'm friends with Kyle Rhodes, who builds the KSR amps. I love what he does. And then, of course, old vintage Fenders and Marshalls kind of never go out of style. And I just always just try to get the right tool for the job instead of trying to make one amp do everything, Big fan of, if you need high gain, get a high gain amp,
Yeah. I'm glad you told me about you're a fan of Marvel Comics, because I have a question I'm going to ask you later that
all right.
I cut it out because a lot of people, it's not really their thing. You kind of mentioned this already. Well, no, let's skip that. Let me ask you a couple of questions about yourself. Are you by nature outgoing or shy?
Oh, I'm pretty outgoing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of at NAMM shows. I like to get together my international friends, Andy James, Jack Gardner, and all those guys from UK, Tony Martinez from Spain, and we'll all get together. And Rick Graham, Tom Cole, one of the funnest years I've ever had at NAMM. It was all of us, and we went out on the town, and when we started talking to the bartenders and waitresses, they just looked at us like a UFO landed, because I've got this super southern accent and all those guys. But yeah, I'm a big fan of going out and spearheading the party wagon. That's kind of like what I like to do.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
You know what? Because you're playing. I'm surprised to hear that your playing is so not out of control. It's like so deliberate.
Yeah,
you're right. So I was.
That's the only thing that I have that's deliberate. Everything else is just
out of control.
It.
Okay, that's
yeah,
cool.
Everything else is flooring it.
Yeah, because I was like, wow. Because I expect you to say, oh, I'm basically quiet, because you're like I said, it's very deliberate. It's focused. It's very specific. You're doing, you could tell. I mean, even in general, how you conduct yourself with your business, and just you're very deliberate. You're not haphazard. You put effort into things, and organize. Just even like your place behind you, it's like neat, organized. It's like So I mean, but that tells things about people. So to me anyway. So I was surprised. Yeah. I figured you'd say, "Oh, you're shy, quiet, reserved." That's good to hear that, man.
Yeah.
Tell me something about yourself that people would either be surprised to hear or would find a little odd. Besides that, you're outgoing.
Man, what would somebody be surprised about me? Gosh, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I can answer that. I think you'd have to ask somebody that doesn't know me. I'm not sure. I'm actually not. I think where you said I seem to be very deliberate and very in control of my my business and stuff. That's been a crash course in life. You know, when you start out at something, you know, obviously you don't have that. And I think I kind of haphazardly fell into trying to make my own career a career. And I learned all those things the hard way by making a lot of mistakes. You know, it's like you learn. What is the Edison quote where he says, "I didn't learn how to make a light bulb. I learned
I failed 10,000.
Yeah,
I failed 10,000 times to how to. Not
I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's really surprising or anything, but on the outside, I think a lot of people are like, yeah, a lot of people always look at me like, "Oh, you seem to have it all together with your music and stuff," and I'm like, dude. That's going to be more further from the truth, you know. It's like you're just kind of winging it and improvising as you go, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and I think everybody's that's like realistic about things is a work in progress. You know, like people come to me sometimes for advice. I'm like, I hope you don't think I have my shit together. I'll happy to answer this, and if I can help you, great. But you know, I'm not this guy. Most important thing your dad and mom taught you?
I think the core values of life in treat others how you want to be treated. You know, the do unto other thing is really that's one of the most important things. My mom had a great saying. When it came to gear, you know, my dad was a cop. We didn't, you know, it's like didn't grow up in $1 billion home or anything crazy like that. So they taught me especially let's talk specifically about music here. Yeah. They taught me how to, you know, do with what I had. Like I had a $600 or $700 Kentucky mandolin, and that's what I had to play. You know, now play it. And she would always say, and my granddad would too, well, if you can play, you can make anything play, you know? So it was, I think coming up in that home where, you know, the pride was on the practice time, the pride was on the end result, not focusing on gear, instruments, pedals, not focusing on any of that stuff. That was a great lesson to, are we there? Okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like learning that lesson was really important because now where I'm at in life, and I have a lot of options as far as gear goes, and people being, you know, offering me things. It's like, well, it's really I can kind of play what I want, you know, and get what I need. I'm trying to find a charger. So like having those options now, it's easy for me not to take advantage of free stuff because it's just pedals and amps. It's like that's not what's important. And I think being instilled with that at a young age of you know what's the most important thing is how much time you spend practicing and that was seems to have been paying itself back in you know in pounds and pounds. I think that's probably the most important thing that they taught me when it comes to music is, you know, practice.
Yeah, well, everybody's always looking for the shortcut, man, and the shortcut is spend another hour with your instrument.
Yeah, it's that's so true. And it's funny that that right now in the world we live in, everything's so accessible, and I definitely love it. Like I'm a big fan of the things like the Kempers and the Fractals and stuff like that. They make it so great, so easy to record and get great sounds. And I'm a fan of everything that everybody's making right now. But man, it's also like I just hear my mom in the back of my head saying, what was her saying? She used to say, you play the guitar with your hands, not your feet. And she was talking about buying different effects,
buying
stuff,
gear,
buying stuff. She's like, you play the guitar with your hands, not your feet,
which is true.
Every time I start, like,
true.
it's, but you know, I love gear and I have self-indulgent rigs, and I.
Yeah, but you're also past the stage. You're also past the stage. You're already good. You know, this isn't about, you know, I need a fourth distortion pedal because I need to get this tone.
Yeah.
It's like you're having fun at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
and,
you're not disillusioning yourself.
Yeah, and when you ask about like what makes what they taught me that was so important, you know, I mean, my gosh, there's a million things. Trying to pick one is impossible, but I think that would be the main one. Is just the work ethic that my granddad and my mom put on me to always self-examine myself, always take one more look at what you're saying about yourself when you're playing music. Always take one more look at like how clean is something. Is it artificial sound? You know, it's like just that reflection thing they taught me, and that work ethic on that is invaluable. You know?
Man, they sounded very clever in some of the ways they taught you, as far as like the criticisms and, you know, being honest with you, and because I think that is very important. You know, nowadays, I mean, I don't, you know, my kids are pretty much grown. I don't really see that often. I see everybody saying my kid's wonderful and, you know, whatever. And I think that you're just creating it like emotional quadriplegics to go out
it's
into
like
the world.
Building a bubble. Like my parents were always, they nailed, my whole family nailed a way to support Brian and I and keep our fire burning to learn music, but they never built that bubble around us. We never got a participation trophy. We lost plenty of contests.
Right.
We also won plenty of contests.
Right.
You know, it was never that, we never had stage parents. We never had, like my mom would be she rarely gives compliments. I think she's given me, you know, compliments on two hands for my entire life. Like, yeah, Andy, your tone really sounded good tonight. I remember we played at the Opry. I was playing with flats. She goes, yeah, your guitar sounded really good tonight. And she never says anything. So I know when she says it, it's 100% honest, you know? Right. And I think that all ties into what I guess I was trying to say earlier. It's just, you know, just that honesty, that support, but also not building that false sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like that was super important. And in today's world, you know, too many people are getting participation trophies or whatever, you know, it's crazy. So yeah, I think they did a great job at teaching me how to be normal.
But that also ties directly into when we first started talking. You probably mentioned the word, we were talking about your records, about the various aspects. You mentioned the word authentic about 4 times. And I think that ties in, that lesson that, you know, she imparted to you and your cousin ties directly into that. So, you know, you can't have one without the other. You can't be like 50% real and then have authentic music.
Yeah, it's got to be the real deal, and it's got to be something that's real to me. Like it has to be, even when I'm playing any style of genre music, it's got to be my it's got to have my thumbprint on it, or you know, it's like I can't just regurgitate somebody else's licks and it be the thing. It's like instantly it's not real. You know?
What's the point?
And if you do, like, this is a cool lesson too. If you do play somebody else's licks, it's got to be like the tip of the hat. It's got to be like, I appreciate what you've done. It's got to be on the nose and clever and to the point. It's really cool the way Joe Bonamassa did the Three Kings tour. Like he made it on the nose, you know, he was like, hey, I'm playing these 3 guys' music. All their last name is King, and I'm playing all their licks. And instead of being called a blues hack, he was paying homage. You know, it was really cool, and I think that's part of that authenticity that everybody that we love as guitar players. Like Eddie Van Halen's authentic. Like that's what we love. Of course, he does all this stuff that's great with tapping and blah blah blah, but we love it because it really just sounds like a guy who's doing what he hears. Totally. And I think that's what makes Chick Corea, Al Di Meola, jazz giants. That's what makes them great. It's what makes Mark O'Connor great. It's what makes Bela Fleck great. It's like they all have one thing in common, and that's authenticity. You know. Yeah,
for sure, man. If you had to be a superhero for a week, which one would you be?
Oh, Iron Man, no question.
That's your guy, Iron Man.
That's my guy. There's a lot of cooler powers out there, but he's always figured out a way to compete by just improvising. no matter what the situation is, he can improvise his way through it, you know. And
he can bullshit his way through it.
I feel like there's a lot of common denominator with me and him. So much of my music is improvised. I feel like that's my guy. So there's cooler powers, I guess. You know, Professor X has great power. Magneto's got great power, but I feel like the guy that could figure out how to always win is Tony Stark. So that's my dude.
What's your non-musical superpower?
Non-musical superpower. Boy, lately it's been my grilling game. I've really tried to get into the grilling thing. I've got a really nice grill in the middle of summer, and I started really checking out Bobby Flay things and Food Networks, and you know, John Sir is really great at it. There's friends of mine in South Carolina that are great grillers. But yeah, that's it. And I think other non-musical superhero power was living through my 20s. I think just surviving that you were out of control in your 20s. I was just into a lot of really dangerous hobbies like racing and jet skis and stuff like that. Like I was just into stuff that should have killed me. So,
do you have any outside of grilling? Do you have any hobbies outside of music now?
Yeah, I know it's probably not considered by most as a legitimate hobby, but I take my video gaming very seriously. I really we have a clan online, and we play all the games, and we decide which games we're going to get based on who's playing them. Our clan name is Big Shrimpin'. So out of non-music, and actually a lot of musicians are in that clan. A lot of really great musicians, and it's fun for us to go into a world and not be those people for a little bit. So so I think that's my
very cool
non-music hobby. Yeah.
Favorite place you've traveled?
Oh man, that's tough. It's a tough one. Give you a couple. Kauai, beautiful. The island on Key West and San Diego, and Chicago when it's not in the winter. You basically get 2 months of Chicago, and then the rest of the time the weather's so brutal you can't take it.
Kauai is beautiful though. It's one of my favorite places, man.
Gosh, I mean, you can't put it into words. If you ever have a chance, if anybody out there listening has a chance to go, I say go.
I actually got married in Hawaii.
Did you?
Yeah, we eloped because we didn't really have any family, so we just said let's go away and just do our thing there. That was 25 years ago, so we need to go back.
It's amazing. I went in January. It's unbelievable, dude. It's just like another planet.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so lush, and the people are really nice, and it's very cool.
Oh, the food is so good.
That fish and rice and
Yeah, it's really cool too that Kauai has been so underdeveloped, and I hope they keep it that way forever. You know, it's beautiful.
It's pretty, man. Anything you're currently trying to improve on? Could be musically, personal, business, or anything else?
Always music. Always. I mean, that never stops. I've been working on my slide playing. I'm a terrible slide player, but I've been working on it. I've been working.
Wait a minute. When you say you're a terrible slide player, that's all relative. Your bar is way up there, man.
I'm not a good slide player. I am working on it. I'm actually trying to play as much slide in standard tuning as possible instead of tuning to an open chord. Trying to steal
Warren plays in standard tuning, actually.
Yeah. So it's really cool. Greg Koch, do you know Greg?
Yeah, I just interviewed Greg last week.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Just kills it. Yeah, great slide player at standard. So I've been working on that due to those guys being awesome. Yeah. I've been working on my fiddle playing, and then I think that the biggest thing I've been working on is just how to control my business and my content. I think that's really important to me now as we enter a digital age. Is like I want things to be available, but I also, I want to find a way to make it worth the consumer to spend money. And I've been doing a lot of self-reflection on what do I spend money on when it comes to content I'm interested in. And so I'm trying to study other people's businesses, whether that be, sports car industry, video game industry, music industry, film industry. I look at what Disney's done with how they've handled the acquisition of Star Wars and Marvel. And it could have been a pretty bad scenario. I don't know if you remember, but a lot of people were not happy that Mickey Mouse acquired Star Wars, and they had done such a great job of making the content, controlling it, making it awesome. Like Rogue One was amazing. So it's like I've been looking at that, and the common theme is like putting the value on quality first, you know, and then it seems like the business will kind of take care of itself. So when doing this live at the Bijou thing, it's like, well, man, this has just got to be the highest possible quality on every aspect. I even went in, we were hearing some amp noise and bleed and stuff. As I would end a note, like I went in and was like trying to just get obsessive over like all that small stuff. And like I would replay that last note just to like try to get as least amount of noise on it as possible. We probably edited, I would say, about a minute and a half out of 114 minutes of show. That's with everybody in the band. Yeah, so,
that's pretty
I mean,
good.
it's a great ratio. And the things we edited weren't the nuts, the psycho circus stuff. The things we edited were like noise and bleed and like just this, like those things that, like I said, just revolve around keeping the quality of the content as high as possible. So yeah, I've been really obsessed with that lately, and I don't think it's fair to say I've been working on business, because I'm not just trying to make money. I'm trying to make a great content that's worthy of somebody wanting to spend money on. Yeah. Maybe that's the way to word it.
Yeah. Well, any kind of information, when you're in the information business, it's all about the content. That's how you get that's how people will come back. They'll come to you because you're Andy Wood, but they'll stay with you because of the quality of the content you're putting out.
Well, I hope so. We'll see.
That's the way it works. Toughest decision you ever had to make, or the hardest thing you ever had to do?
I'll probably, think of 30 more things after I say this, but I think the most recent decision, which is not to immediately, not to take for granted my solo career. I've always just kind of fell into the sideman thing and sideman, the past few years. So really putting more of an effort on my solo stuff has been a really tough decision. It sounds like it wouldn't be, but it is on a business aspect because, it is. So that's been a tough decision. And outside of that, man, I've been blessed. I really on the day-to-day, I'm not hit with too many crazy hard decisions. So I think anything else would be just kind of not genuine, So
no, I appreciate your answering that so straightforward. It is a big thing, because when you're a sideman, you're running your own business, but you're getting your leads, right?
I think with the sideman thing is it's so cushy. You don't have to worry about who's booking your flights, who's handling the business, what your end of the year tax stuff is. Like none of that's your problem,
right?
And it's really easy to get nice and comfy and complacent in that scenario. And I've always worked on my music while being a sideman, like I did Caught during that, but it took me so much more time, and over the past month or so since I've been home, I was like, you know what? Just gonna focus on the things that I've got cooking and get those things released promptly instead of letting them lay around for another 6 or 8 months just because I could. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it depends on your personality profile too, because some people are really good starters, but they're not good finishers. So like they love to start, right? And other people are like really good finishers, but getting start. So a lot of it depends on your profile, and you got to kind of know your weakness and push through it.
I'm definitely the first. I start a million things.
Most creatives
and trying to get them finished. Yeah,
most creatives are.
Yeah. So that's been a tough decision, but I feel like after the 10th and once this stuff starts getting out, I think we'll see what happens, and hopefully it'll be the right decision.
I hope so too, man. 2 more questions. One more question. What's your definition of happiness? Knowing that changes from time to time in your life. Right now, what's making you happy?
Oh, man, the perfect pizza from Gavino's. That's the definition of happiness. God, it's good. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's such a loaded question. I think honestly, for me, when I have a good guitar day, I have a good day. When I have a good music day, my day is good. When I have a bad music day, my day is bad. Even the day I'm kind of under the weather, not feeling great, but if I were to go downstairs and start playing some guitar and it just kind of came to me easy, I would be like, wow, today's a good day.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of most musicians can probably associate with that. I think happiness can be the support of your loved ones and just knowing that they got your back. I think we take that for granted. And I think we take for granted the small stuff. Like I made the pizza thing as a joke, but like honestly, like that is like, man, that's good stuff, you know, and enjoying a good steak or, you know, a cold beer or whatever. It's like that's making sure to not let the little things in life and the simplicity of a little thing escape the fact that it really is something that's really good.
Yeah.
You know, I think so. Happiness is a big encompassing thing that can be this monumental achievement, or it can be something as small as like riding a sick water slide at a water park. You know, it's like it can be all these different things, and making sure to put the appropriate value on the gratitude on the things that would slip through your ideas. We recently went to Universal for the Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, down here in Florida?
Yeah, it was so sick. Yeah. We did the whole deal, and you know, anytime I would see somebody kind of not having a great time, I was like, how are you not having a great time? Like, what is going through your mind that like making you not have a great time? And of course, that's a minuscule population in comparison to everyone else down there who was having a great time. But that's kind of what I'm talking about, is like when you get so far into something and it's like maybe that entitlement thing can sneak in there sometimes and kind of ruin your perspective. Like, oh, I have to wait in line an extra 20 minutes, or my kid sucks, or whatever anybody was like complaining about. My dad sucks, or whatever. It's like, man, not really, because you're down here in a freaking
Universal,
awesome place, and you're having a great time. Yeah, it's like, come on. So I think the happiness thing is tied to all sides of life. And sometimes we forget the small ones. Like, I mean, my God, look at you and I. We're on the internet right now having this interview for a podcast. It's mind-numbing. This could have happened 15 years ago.
I know, it's wild.
You know?
I know.
So I think this is it. Like that's what happiness is to me, and that's a really long definition. And I apologize, but it's really heartfelt.
It's authentic. That's just be you, man. No, I think a lot of it. I think a lot of it, like the small stuff. I think you have to be present for that, because if you're going through the motions, eating a steak or going to
just wash it.
Yeah. If you're just like going through it and it's hard, at least I think that has to be deliberate. I think you have to go out of your way. If you're a type A driven personality, you have to be deliberate about being present. It's not going to happen because your mind is always thinking about production. It's thinking about production. And a lot of, at least myself and other guys I'm talking to, a lot of your value is tied up in productivity, which is horrible.
Yeah.
Not money, production. Like, did I get shit done?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I know it's a constant battle that, in all honesty, I'm really doing better as I've gotten older of just like, fuck it. I mean, I'm 54 now. I know my window. Once you hit 50, it like hits you in the face. So you're like, man, I've got to start enjoying my life now. Not that, I mean, you never know, but you
never know. And I think that hit me. That's why I caught was that record for me, because I was like, for whatever reason, I was in that headspace. I was like, man, what would happen? Like everybody would always think I was just a sideman, and it got in my head that I didn't leave any kind of statement. And that's really important to me, have some kind of statement, and also like you're saying, on those days of working on that stuff, it's like, man, also enjoy the day after, like hanging out with your dog, or like, playing guitar for fun, not for business, and like, video games or movies or whatever, comic books, whatever makes you happy. It's like you said, just having enough awareness to be present and enjoy the simple things, while also, knowing that the productivity type A thing exists as well. So it's a tough challenge. I think if anybody ever got it right, they should write a book, tell us all how to do it.
It is tough. Hey, listen, man, you're awesome. I really appreciate everything, man. I really enjoyed getting to know you. And where can people, I think people online, andywoodmusic.com, is that the best place?
Yeah, andywoodmusic.com is my website. Of course, I have Twitter, and Facebook and Instagram. I do all that stuff. And then all of my content, will be in all the most likely places that you listen to your music, whether that be Spotify or iTunes or whatever.
Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, Andy Wood Music. And check out these the releases. Caught Between the Truth and the Lie. That is Andy's coming of age album. Half acoustic, half electric. I'm sorry, let me cut you off. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, you nailed that. And then the big release is this Friday. So Friday the 10th, I think this podcast will air after Friday. So Live at the Bijou will be out. And that's the big one for me because it's video. I've never done video before, and especially I haven't done anything of movie length. So it was quite a challenge, and I hope everyone goes to check that out.
And you're quite dressed up for that, man.
Oh man, when we do the
you went all
Andy
out
Wood shows, we make sure that's kind of I'll tell you, I'll leave you with this. My granddad always used to say, "Don't ever walk on stage looking like you just walked out of the audience."
Well, you look great. That's why
all the Andy Wood shows, we always dress up. I make the band dress up. That's just part of the shtick.
You know what? That's why I said, "Man, how old are you?" Because you look so young. Because I'm expecting like a suit and top. And, you're really dressed very nice, and then you're like totally chilled out. I'm like, oh
yeah.
So it was like the big difference. That's what it was, man. Anyway, man, everybody check out Andy Wood's material. He's a fantastic guitar player. He's immensely talented. Go to andywoodmusic.com. The new CD and video is Andy Wood Live at the Bijou, and Caught Between the Truth and the Lie is Andy's legacy that he left for himself to tell everybody that this is it, man.
This is what I do. Here's what I do.
Man, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, and thanks again to Andy Wood for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com and sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some cool stuff for guitar players. Now, be nice. Go play your guitar and have some fun. Till next time, peace and love, y'all. I am out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.